Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Stacey Van Dyke. Right now, we're under 5 weather alerts and we're seeing travel advisories across the region. We're going to start this afternoon in Harwood, where Valley News Team's Nashay Taylor is standing by to give us a look at conditions. Nashay, what are you seeing?
Well, Stacey, if you guys are seeing what we're seeing, pretty much visibility is non-existent. The blowing snow and wind is just coming in heavy. A few times we've had to pull over just so that we could take a moment because we couldn't see anything as we were riding. Right now we're on US 81 near Harwood. We actually decided to turn back around because it's too much. There's lack of visibility. Like, it's very difficult to see right now. As you can see out the windows, I'm sure it's difficult for you all to see as well, but it's pretty hard. Earlier on our way down, we were on I-29. Visibility was about the same. You couldn't see any signs unless you were about 100 feet close to it, or maybe even less. It was just very difficult to see. A good thing is that we've been seeing a lot of people with hazard lights on while they're on I-29, but there were a few folks that didn't have their headlights on. So just a reminder to everyone, just make sure you have your headlights on as you brave these conditions, because it'll make it easier for everyone that's out on the road. Sending it back to you guys, I'm Nashay Taylor in Harwood for Valley News Live.
All right, Nashay, thanks so much for that look. Let's quickly get over to Summer now for a look at what the storm has in store next. Summer?
Yeah, thank you so much. We've been talking about this first alert weather day since last week, and it continues today and tomorrow as well. Here's a snapshot along North Dakota Highway 11 near Ashley. You can see those drifts worsening across the road. Even just within the last hour, I've been watching this. Looking at the satellite and radar, we've been having pretty persistent snow bands right through parts of the Central Valley, and the darker blues is where we're seeing medium to heavy snowfall rates at times in excess of 1 inch or more per hour. Combined with that wind, visibility is 0 in Oaks, around 1/4 mile in both Jamestown and Fargo, and it's been this way since this morning. Visibility is 1 mile in Grand Forks, 1/2 mile in Detroit Lakes. We've got the blizzard warning continuing until 9 o'clock tonight. Surrounding areas in red under a winter storm warning until tomorrow at noon. But that's not the end of it. Stacey, as you mentioned earlier, we've got 5 weather alerts, including a winter weather advisory for a couple of our counties in purple, a wind chill advisory across the Northern Valley in blue, and a wind chill warning up towards the Devil's Lake Basin. We have a lot to go over, and I will be breaking all of this down. Quick look at temperatures well below 0 across the north, with 30s to 40 degree below wind chills. So even tonight in Fargo, snow continues. Stacey, we will have a brief break as we head into tonight when it comes to our snowfall, but it'll start back up again. All those details are still to come.
All right, thanks so much, Summer. Now, with that winter weather, we're obviously seeing impacts on the roads. Let's check out the road maps in North Dakota. No travel advised in the southeast part of the state. That includes Fargo, almost to Jamestown. A portion of I-94 West is closed. More on that in just a moment. Drifting snow paired with whiteout conditions, like Nashay just showed us, has caused a number of accidents already today. Now, in Minnesota, the majority of the state is seeing poor weather conditions. No travel advised, with most roads partially or completely covered in snow. And freezing temperatures are an added risk for anyone who gets stuck or stranded out on the road. Authorities recommend avoiding travel if possible, making sure you have a full tank of gas and keeping a stocked survival kit in your vehicle. North Dakota Highway Patrol still working to rescue travelers from a pileup just west of Castleton. We're learning 13 to 15 vehicles were involved. Emergency crews have been at that crash scene since 11 a.m. Traffic is being diverted. Well, time may be running out for a peaceful resolution to the Ukraine crisis. President Biden has accepted an offer to meet with Russian leader Vladimir Putin, but the White House believes plans for an invasion are already in the works. Bradley Blackburn reports from New York.
President Biden and Russian President Vladimir Putin have agreed in principle to a face-to-face meeting to discuss the standoff over Ukraine.
President Biden has made very clear that he's prepared to meet President Putin at any time, in any format, if that can help prevent a war.
The timing and location of a possible summit have yet to be determined. The details will be arranged during Thursday's sit-down between Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. The White House stressed that there will be no talks if Russia attacks Ukraine. At least 150,000 Russian troops are now in position along that nation's border. Sources tell CBS News those soldiers have already received orders to invade.
We're talking about the potential for war in Europe.
This weekend, President Putin oversaw military drills that included nuclear-capable missiles. The Russian leader has demanded an end to NATO's expansion into Eastern Europe, but says Russia has no plans to invade Ukraine. Bradley Blackburn, CBS News, New York.
Thousands of Russian troops were supposed to leave Belarus after wrapping up 10 days of military exercises yesterday. However, the two nations said the soldiers' deployment has now been extended indefinitely. Protesters gathered in Washington, D.C. to show support for Ukraine. The Stand With Ukraine Day of Solidarity event comes amid the growing threat of a Russian invasion. Protesters first gathered at the Lincoln Memorial before marching to the White House. United Help Ukraine says they're demanding an end to Russia's war in Ukraine and the release of imprisoned Ukrainian citizens. The group is also calling on President Biden to bring economic sanctions on Russia. Yesterday, people stopped to pay their respects to a fallen police officer at a memorial in Huntington Beach, California, after a deadly helicopter crash. People placed flowers around a patrol car memorial as they stopped to remember Officer Nicholas Villa. He and a fellow officer were responding to a fight disturbance call on Newport Beach when their helicopter crashed Saturday. He was a 16-year law enforcement veteran, leaving behind a wife and daughter. Investigators are still trying to determine the cause of that crash. Queen Elizabeth has tested positive for COVID-19. According to the Press Association, she's experiencing mild cold-like symptoms. She's believed to have been fully vaccinated and boosted. This comes just a few weeks after the Queen reached her historic Platinum Jubilee, 70 years on the throne. She will follow all appropriate guidelines and will continue to receive medical treatment. Prince Charles and the Duchess of Cornwall both recently tested positive for COVID. This is the second time the prince has been infected with the virus, and he's believed to have seen his mother just a few days before his latest positive test. A Minnesota woman has won the title of Mrs. Wheelchair Minnesota for overcoming challenges, and now she's advocating for facilities to support disabled Minnesotans. Linda Hood is a clinical scientist, an Olympic volunteer, and a marathoner whose health took a turn in 2018. Doctors say she contracted a rare autoimmune disease from eating bad chicken, which paralyzed her body. But she says it stirred her soul. She's now lobbying for adult changing tables in all of Minnesota's major buildings.
Some of the towers today will hear me and say, I want to help. I want to show her that when she comes to U.S. Stadium to cheer on the Vikings, that look, there's a bathroom for you. And not just for me, but for everyone in this situation.
Her grassroots efforts are working to get the attention of lawmakers to make public restrooms more inclusive and accessible. The streets in Canada's capital city are quiet today as police are appearing to end protests in downtown Ottawa. The Freedom Convoy occupied streets in front of the country's parliament buildings for weeks in protest of COVID-19 rules and the policies of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. On Friday, police began to crack down on demonstrators with hundreds of officers moving into the protest area and making arrests. They continued that effort Saturday. According to Ottawa police, at least 191 people were arrested and 57 vehicles towed. Of those arrested, more than 100 were charged, mainly for mischief and obstruction. Trudeau said today that emergency powers are still needed. Parliament will vote on that tonight. The Winter Olympics in Beijing ended last night after more than 2 weeks of competition and controversy. The U.S. ended the games with 25 medals in fifth place. Norway finished with the most overall and a record number of gold medals. Jamie Yuccas covered the Olympics from start to finish.
For 17 days, China tried its best to put a happy face on what many called a joyless games. But it's hard to resist the smiles of these athletes. Team USA bobsledder Alana Myers-Taylor, who tested positive for COVID and missed being flag bearer for the opening ceremony, got a make good last night and enjoyed every second.
So tell me about closing ceremonies for you.
Oh my gosh, to actually be able to carry the flag, to hoist the flag, be able to wave it, it was just a dream come true.
With 2 medals, Taylor became the most decorated black athlete in the history of the Winter Games, with 5 total.
I just want winter sport, especially within our country, to be for everybody. The more and more different people I think we can get out to our sports, the more they continue to grow.
Outside COVID concerns, the biggest story of the Games was the doping allegations surrounding 15-year-old Russian figure skater Kamila Valieva and her dramatic rise and fall. Sarah Hirschland is the CEO of the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee.
I hear from athletes all the time how frustrated they are that, okay, Russia's been punished, but they still operate just under a different flag, and Russia's still in the name.
It certainly doesn't feel like Russia's been punished when they show up and frankly have as much success as we've seen.
Hirschland told us the U.S. will continue to push for investigating Valyeva's coaches and staff and to strengthen anti-doping rules overall. Host nation China can be relatively happy on two fronts. The strict bubble worked, minuscule COVID infection rates through most of the games, and it kept the lid on athlete protests over the country's record on human rights. Jamie Yuka, CBS News, Beijing.
And here's the final medal count. Norway took home the most, 37. Russia Olympic Committee followed with 32. Then Germany, Canada, and the U.S.